pleased to have my friend Ray Drew on A Coleman Conversation. Ray, welcome. I'm going to enjoy this very much. You were a Coleman Emerging Lender of the Year a number of years ago, and guess what, Ray? I was right. You emerged and you're a force
Here
in the
I
industry.
am.
Yeah. Hey, you're the managing director of Truliant Federal Credit Union, but you also are an industry, dare I say the word, influencer with your podcast, The Art of SBA. For those of you who haven't seen that, go watch that. It's Ray does some pretty good stuff using YouTube and social media to build his personal brand and to bring in SBA lending. So Ray, just congratulations on everything you've done and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Tell me what you do for Truliant.
Yeah, so I'm SBA Managing Director at Truliant. I oversee the sales team. I help drive production, and we're ironing out processes, and I've got my hands in a whole bunch of different things at this point. We like to wear a lot of hats around here. So
I apologize. I didn't do my homework. Where do you rank in terms of the top 500 lenders?
Last time I checked, we were actually number 29.
Good for you. Congratulations. That's a lot of volume.
Well, it's our average loan's around 1.2, and so it's kind of high. But we're doing nationwide lending, and we've got a team of about 28 people now in the division. So it takes a village. Which
brings us to the point of the Coleman Conversation. You reached out to me and say, "Hey, Bob, I want to talk about what I want to do with NAGGL." And you're running for the board, and good for you. I don't know if you know this, but I was one of the founding directors of NAGGL.
Oh, maybe you could put in a good word for me.
My peer group is no longer around. They've moved on. They've moved on. But good for you. So my first question is you're doing a great job at Truliant. You're doing a great job with the Art of SBA. And for those of you, we'll provide the link. Please subscribe to his channel. He does excellent podcasts, interviewing industry leaders, and very nice themes. He does an excellent job. Just go and sign up for that. Why do you want to add this to your plate in terms of joining the trade organization board?
Well, like I said, I feel really lucky and blessed to be able to make a living in this industry. I've always felt like I need to give back. That's why I did Flagel. I was on the board for 6 years, including 1 year as chairman. And that's why I started the Art of SBA Lending podcast back in 2019, where I literally give all my trade secrets to my competitors. And so now I'm running to serve on the NAGGL board. And I, have recently taken a step back from production. So I've, hired a team around me to take over, my book of business, essentially focusing more in management and leadership. And it's actually freed up some of my time. So I, have more capacity to take on things like this. And I'm really excited to take a crack at it.
What is the role of a trade organization in 2025 in terms of shaping SBA policy?
Well, I think, when you're asked to, self-nominate, you are asked to kind of put in your sort of policy, what you would change and where you would prioritize, the resources of the organization. So, NAGGL works hand in glove with SBA, or at least they should, right? They should be, and helping shape good policy. And I feel like COVID sent us into like this alternate dimension, where we had this COVID era relief, and then we had the 7A incentives. And then finally, to top it all off, we had the sweeping changes of 2023. So we went from a period of record high premiums and record low defaults to, then rates shot up and defaults spiked. And then came a reckoning. And, now we're finally getting back to normal. And 50-10-8 isn't perfect, but it gives us a chance to regroup and reset. And so I think this is, to answer your question, What I don't want to happen is for us to give up on pushing the industry forward to meet the demands of the modern day small business owner. I feel like absolutely need to keep going in that direction where we're trying to modernize the program, but this time with a more nuanced and incremental approach. And I think that's where NAGGL can come into play.
Good answer. And I want to clarify, it's not a challenge, Ray, but I want to clarify. Yes, we had low defaults and low delinquencies, and then there was a spike. However, let's keep things into perspective. The spike was nowhere near the carnage that came out of the Great Recession for Main Street. There was a spike, but it was much more manageable this time around. And I credit that. I should ask you the question. What do you attribute that to?
What, the spike, or that it wasn't as bad?
It wasn't as bad.
I agree that relatively speaking, it wasn't. It's 3.69 is the default number for the last fiscal year. I think that's not too bad considering the impact that all of these small businesses have made.
I agree with you 100%.
The lenders. And I think it was largely driven by the small loans. And I think the small loans, there was probably a couple folks in there that went a little too aggressive with, their lack of underwriting on the small loans. And while I think that it is probably better to put more guardrails around some of those smaller loans, like I don't think we're quite ready for score and go, which I'd love to do one day, but I just don't think we're there. But you saw the boomerang effect. Now we've dropped the small loans back down to 350 when I think we should keep it at 500. I think most people I've been talking to agree with that, but put some guardrails back in place for that. I think that drove up the defaults too, but I think it's just the lack of guarantee fee, with the loss that really drove the big reaction to say, hey, we've got to we got to undo all this. We got to go back to what we were doing before. And, if you had collected those fees, I don't think, there would have been that big of a loss, if at all, given that, that fairly low default rate. It's just, I think the trend is what was scary.
Ray, if you were king for a day, normally I ask people, if you were the SBA administrator for the day, what would you do? This case, I'm going to combine it. If you were in charge of NAGGL for a day and being the SBA administrator for the day, what would be your agenda in that 24 hours?
I'm someone who just wants to. I'm never satisfied. That's good or bad depending on who you ask. But I want to push us forward to get better. And this is such a special industry, and you just want it to continue to succeed. So I don't really, when I had that question posed to me, it's like, well, I mean, there's a couple things I would change, but what does everyone else think? So I actually went out and asked a lot of people just what they what their answer to that question was, and I actually have some. The responses varied. I mean, people were saying SBA responsiveness is a big issue right now, particularly in idle subordinations. Some folks rightfully said they want updated forms that align with the SOP, more transparency around audits. You know how we all, love those audits. They just seem to come out of nowhere, and it really puts a lot of strain on our already strapped for resources departments. And so some help there is much appreciated. Faster guarantee purchases when a loan goes bad, more consistency around, it's funny, Bob. I was telling somebody the other day that, hey, just as a reminder, I found out, or it was just kind of said at a conference that equity above and beyond the SBA's minimum required equity doesn't need to be verified to the exact standard of the SOP, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, and their response was, well, does the other hand know that? Meaning, sometimes I think we want more consistency around what the policy writers are saying and what is being cited in audits. And the fact that is coming up is a little bit concerning, because ultimately this is a program for banks, community banks, credit unions. And I think honestly, it's harder now to make an SBA loan than it's been in a while. We eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff. But for the average bank that makes 5 or 10 loans a year, it's really hard to stay on top of all the ever-changing guidance. And if banks lose confidence in their guarantee, they're going to exit the program. And then the top 10 or 15 lenders are going to continue to get larger and larger and larger. And I think that's bad for the program.
Let me pin you down. Give me some specifics that you would like to see improve the program. I agree with you. We always want to see things improve. So tell me what your improvement platform is.
So I think the small loans should go back to 500, but with the underwriting standards, and I think we need to raise the loan amount to at least $7.5 million to account for inflation.
Good. I like that. How can you make a difference on a trade organization board, nonprofit, number of directors? It is run, as all trade organizations, by a president and executive council. What is your strategy?
Well, I think, like you said before, it's time for the next generation of SBA lenders to rise up and bring fresh ideas to the table. I mean, think about this, Bob. NAGGL's 40. I'm 36. NAGGL has been around longer.
Were you trying to date me here? Thanks a lot, Ray.
Listen, they've done some great things. I love that they're putting AI at the forefront of the conversation in our industry, for example. I think that's right. I just think the industry is craving fresh blood and new energy at this point in time. And so it's a big board. I can't make any changes alone, but there's some other great people running for the board. Dustin Baker from Shatterbox is running. Charles Rowe, who runs Velocity SBA, is running. These guys are forward thinkers that also want to make the industry better.
Yeah, and I both those names are great. I support anybody who wants to do that. I think that's a great way to enhance your career, to become more knowledgeable about the program, and to meet the decision makers at SBA and, importantly, at the congressional level on what drives this program. I am a firm believer of a organization that represents, in this situation, lenders, because lenders are very powerful in terms of making this program work. Ray, you mentioned there were aggressive lenders. We've always had aggressive lenders. We've always had lenders who have pushed the edge. And I believe very strongly it's the role of a trade organization. I shouldn't say trade organization. It's a role of some sort of organization, as well as SBA, to identify that and stop that before it gets out of hand. So
yeah, I think I put that as my number. I think I put that at the top of my list of priorities for the trade organization. Actually, believe it or not, because I really do think the number one threat to the program is a handful of bad actors that misuse the program. Yeah, and
that's always been there.
At
Absolutely
scale.
Right.
And I would love to come up with some creative solutions to reduce that risk.
Yeah. And another thing you said, when you said you gave away the trade secrets, I challenge you on that. There's no secrets in our organization, as in anything. It's all commitment to the idea and execution of the goal to make it right. So I am, as an industry, we know what is right and what is not right, and we all hear things. So I'm very, an organization, a NAGGL, has a very powerful platform to help solve an aggressive lending problem without putting handcuffs on all of the good people who want to do things correctly, and the new SOP perhaps is handcuffing them.
That's unique in our industry, though, because we are an open industry where people call each other, work with each other, tell each other what they're doing, what's working, what's not working. Yeah. People from other industries come in and they see this and they're like, this is not normal. But that's why we love it. That's why we love this industry. And I'm never going to say anything negative about the folks on the board or the folks I'm running against. I think they're all great. I just have my own unique approach and my own priorities. And I think that assembling a board with diverse viewpoints is ultimately going to make NAGGL a stronger organization.
I support anybody who serves in that type of situation and anybody who wants to serve. I think it's very important that we get quality people who then are becoming the voice of the industry. I'm going to turn to Ray Drew a little bit personally. What makes you tick?
Well, I kind of mentioned it earlier. I have this desire to always be growing, and I really like work and working in building things. I have that sickness where, I can't turn the brain off. So I have to make a conscious effort to make time for my family and my friends, which I do. And I've worked hard at that over the recent years. So my life is pretty simple. It's health,
No,
work,
it's not simple.
family.
I'm gonna challenge you on. I understand you have a second child coming on the way.
Okay,
That does not make for a simple life.
Yeah, that may add a little complexity to it, particularly in
and in
the
a good
sleep
way,
arena.
and in a great way.
The first one's been great, and we're really looking forward to the second one here.
No, I mean that's awesome and good for you, Dad. I mean that's a fun challenge of life to balance all of that. Give me a projected outlook of the industry 5 years from now. Just sort of give me a macro picture of how you see SBA lending helping Main Street.
I think the AI stuff is, at our doorstep. So we're already seeing how that's being put to use with some of these LOSs that are coming to market. And it's just, mind blowing stuff. I just interviewed one founder of a software company on the pod last week, which we're going to release, over the next few, weeks, I think. And, it was the first time I ever was blown away by a demo, because it's like think of, ChatGPT kind of is what really started accelerating this whole AI movement, right? When you were able to log in and type in something and you saw what it did with your own eyes, that's what changed a lot of us to say, oh, okay, it's here. I saw that, and I think we're going to move more in that direction. But I think it's going to really create a bigger divide in the SBA ecosystem between lenders that are using AI and scaling their operations and getting more automated and trying to go direct to consumer. So like a Rocket Mortgage, I think a lot of these top shops are going to become Rocket Mortgage. And then over here, I think a lot of these are going to be the smaller shops that are more relationship based, that are more like your local mortgage, office or something along those lines, or maybe it's your bank and your branch, and there's someone there helping you. So I think over the next 5 years, that divide becomes a lot more clear.
Excellent answer. I appreciate your thinking that way. The one constant is we have change. We all know there's going to be change. We just don't know how that's going to impact us personally as well as our industry. Ray, I've really enjoyed the conversation. I wish you the best of luck on your election. Good for you for throwing your hat in the ring. And let's continue the conversation. Ray Drew, Managing Director of Truliant, Podcaster Excellence, the Art of SBA. Thanks a lot, man.
You're the best, Bob. Thanks.